This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so as it records, we can just go ahead and go slide by slide. And then, like I said, I'll just go
Okay.
ahead and I'll do some editing and stuff like that in Premiere so that I can work the slides into the video recording.
Okay, cool. I'm about to pull up the slides right now.
Yeah, so the first one is about the animated storytelling. So,
Yes.
um, like what I chose was this basically discussing the setup of character and conflict, person versus self, or internal conflict. From what I was reading about, storytelling by Liz, one of the main things that I found that was important was that, in the character building aspect of, motion, the character or the design has to be able to have some type of conflict. Because I just found looking at different videos and stuff like that, that if there's no conflict or there's no internal struggle or anything starting off with the character's issues, then there really is no story. So,
Right.
for me, that's what I read about, and I thought was kind of cool to kind of go into what I was gonna do for, the presentation um, for my motion graphics. So, and I know you had the working towards the solution.
Yes. So like you said, I had the working towards the solution. And basically kind of like what you just stated about like there's always going to be a character, and then there's usually a problem, and then of
Right.
course, with the problem you're working to find a solution to change that problem, defeat it, conquer it. And I use the example of the movie Enough,
Right.
because that was a movie that obviously had a problem, and the actor or the character, being Jennifer Lopez, was trying to working towards the solution.
So that character is looking to overcome a problem, and especially with abuse or anything like that, or violence in the home, like you stated, there has to be an overcoming of something. So the
Right,
building up of that storyline to then say, okay, it's gone all the way up to the build up, and now what's next? It's
right,
solving that solution, but that character has to get to that point. You know, and
right.
that's what I think is kind of interesting with the storytelling is that if you don't have a good build up, then you're not going to keep the audience attention.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And I agree with that on so many levels. Although we're not in like the film industry, I think we still kind of, with being in media design, you have like a certain audience attention for so long. Being with a movie, I feel like as an audience, as a people, we give a movie like at least 10 minutes, or some people less than that. Some people give it like 5 minutes, and if they're not into it in the
Right.
first 5 minutes, if there's not a character that they like, or if there's not, like you said, that build up, you're just gonna turn. But as like being a graphic designer or being in media design, we kind of have that ability of just that first glimpse. So
Right.
if you're not interested, as soon as you see something or nothing triggers your mind, then you kind of just bypass it. So I think it's really important to make a statement, just like you said, just with the build up.
Yeah. Because I picked the Blind Side, because for me, the
Mm-hmm.
Blind Side was a movie. I like football. I played college football, so it was interesting because I already had an attraction to what it was talking about in the story, and plus I'm in Baltimore, so Michael Orr was here in Baltimore. That was a big thing. But, the thing when I looked at the internal struggle, I think we all deal with an internal struggle or a personal issue that we try to overcome, and this story
Right,
kind of gave you all of that like right in the beginning. Him
right,
coming from, a poverty mindset and not really thinking that he can make it because his parents was dealing with issues, and then the
Mhm.
neighborhood he was from was gang infested. His parents and stuff were involved in criminal activities and having to fight through that. So
Mhm.
showing just different type of struggles, and ultimately you have the racial aspect and stuff. But I think the buildup of this was right after all the internal struggle. He got a
Mhm.
break when he got adopted by the family. But
Right.
throughout the
Absolutely.
movie, there was a in and out, up and down of different, conflicts that he had to deal with to become ultimately the person he is now. So,
Right.
um, you know, not only with this, but when I look at reality TV and everything like that, you're right. Like if there's nothing intriguing in the beginning or the
Mhm.
storyline sucks, I'm done. Because
Exactly.
yeah, because I mean nowadays with social media and with reality TV show, you have so many
Mhm.
things catching your attention. So as
Right.
media designers, we have to take that in consideration and say we have to develop something that's going to keep our audience, or they're going to just move on to something else.
Exactly, absolutely. And I totally agree with you, like what you said. I'd seen The Blind Side, and for forever it was my favorite movie because it's so relatable. They
Right.
make the characters, like you said, just kind of anybody could kind of relate. If you were the guy who was playing football, if you were a mother who's adopted, a child, if you were the father, or if you were a son that was in a family that your parents adopted a child and you kind of
Right.
had that moment where you were trying to find your place. You don't want to feel ungrateful or like selfish because you're like, these are
Right.
my parents. So there was a series of stories in that movie. I think that the directors and the creators of that movie really did a good job with, like you said, the build up and the characters that they chose. Because the storyline was really good. It has
Hmm.
the sentimental part, it had the humor,
Yeah.
um, and like from the beginning, it's like defining the characters, and then it's like, okay, what's the problem? So the
Right.
problem was obviously, the guy was homeless, and he wanted to play football, and then the mothers came in and worked towards a solution, tried to help him. And initially, I think she just wanted to take him in for like that night, right? Wasn't
Yeah.
it something like
Yeah.
that? She only wanted to have him for that night. And I haven't seen it in so long, but it's such a memorable movie, you can just relate to it so much.
Yeah, that's a movie that my son was when I was sitting back. I was like, "What movies have I seen that relate to?" My son was like, "The Blind Side," and I was like, "Oh yeah." So it was kind of easy. As I
Yeah,
get older, I know
exactly.
I can't recall on movies I've seen, years ago, but I do
Right.
remember that movie quite vivid. So we got
Yeah.
so we're going into now the motion storyboard and just basically how we plan to incorporate the motion board in the future. For me,
Mhm.
I already professionally deal with branding and stuff like that, but I deal
Mhm.
with it more or less from the brand analytics. But now I'm starting to say, hey, I want to branch out. That's why I wanted to take this course, and
Mhm.
I'm seeing that we don't even really use it as a team. A lot of
Right.
motion graphics. We deal with basically the print, or we deal with just like the PowerPoint presentations or stuff like that. But the motion graphics that I'm dealing with now, I think it's a cool way to kind of introduce some new things, for our clients, really.
Right.
Other areas is, social media and personal, so
Right. And I totally agree with you there. Like you said, I'm also in, like, I guess my main title is a associate project manager. So I work in the events industry.
right,
But I do kind of have like somewhat of a graphic design responsibility in my job. And so a lot of the times we kind of skip this process.
right,
It's just like you dive right in, whatever your client needs, you're just kind of just going straight to it instead of creating this, idea of what you have aligned, like what's ahead, what do you need, who are you trying to attack, or what, like the industry, like
yeah,
what are you going for? But like you said, for social media, we actually this is kind of a different perspective, but like for different banners, like we may have one banner, but
Yeah.
then for each banner, we have to create a size that'll fit for Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. So what I have to do is basically create the banner and then create different dimensions for each one. So like for
Okay.
Twitter, we may need a 400 by 400, or for Instagram, we may need like 1024 pixels by 512, whatever. So I think it's really important to understand that, the targets that you have to go about, as well as, understanding the importance of social media. I know a lot of times, some of us kind of get annoyed with social media because it takes up so much of everybody's attention.
Yeah.
But then, as a graphic designer, we have to realize that is an angle that we can use to our advantage, because it is taking up so many people's time. We could use it as an advantage to like give to our clients, this is what we want to put out for you, or this is, something that you could post on your social media and use it.
I see
Mm-hmm.
for my industry, like we do a lot of stuff for politicians. We're not, I'm like right down the street from DC. So, I
Uh,
mean, we do a lot of government, and people are kind of afraid of animation and motion graphics, because
mm-hmm.
one, it's the price tag that I'm finding. It's like
Yeah.
I don't see many people that and at least some of our competitors that's looking for animators and stuff like that. I could see why, because we're on a tight budget. But the thing I
Mm-hmm.
like about the motion graphics, like the vision boards and stuff, is that it doesn't take a lot of time. It can be justified within a budget. But
Right.
but the funny part is we spend more time videotaping and then editing videotape, and the only
Mm-hmm.
animation you may get is like, let's say, a masking of a signature, or you might get maybe like an intro. But I think that motion graphics, it just needs to be in my industry where I'm at, dealing with politicians and government officials and stuff like that, is just introducing them to like, hey, it would actually help on social media if we did, you know, motion poster review, and then like for your campaign, just give a little
Yeah.
feeling to a poster opposed to just a name or a face being, faded in off of a,
Right.
a video, 2-minute video. It would
Right.
save more money. So yeah, I'm gonna really push for this because I see value to it. And even on social media, we do some social media stuff, but um, it's just interesting. It's educating the clients to realize that that's where everything's going now.
Right.
Everything's going
Right.
to feeling of some type of graphics, or it's no longer static graphics isn't enough.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Because like everything's just transforming. We have
Right,
commercials. We have the GIFs,
right,
the cinemagraphs. The parallaxal images. So, like you said, I think it is important that, as a graphic designer, or to be in that industry, it's important that we understand the meaning of the different motion styles that we have to offer. Because
right,
a lot of the times, either, it could be a lack of knowledge. The
right,
client doesn't know what else is out there. They only know, let's just create me a funny post, or, do a video. And some
right,
of them aren't aware, we can make a video, a GIF, or a cinematograph, or emotion, just any type of all of the motion styles that we have. So I think it's very important for us to always know those meanings and see where it benefits the client best to use those, because
right,
I think that it isn't used enough. I
right.
totally agree with you there.
That's true. So let's go into your storyboard. Just give me a kind of an idea on like how you develop your storyboard before we go into your actual motion graphic piece. Just to get an understanding on like how you came about the thought process and developing the overall storyboard.
Okay, so my storyboard, it actually took me a little while, because at first my biggest disadvantage is I'm not a very good artist. So, drawing things out, it really does help, being able to sketch things out, because you can kind of get a visual of what you want, like you have it in
Right.
your mind, and then when you get on the computer, if you just start, like if you skip the step of sketching it out and you just start getting on your computer, you kind of lose time because sometimes
Right.
you see something on the computer and you're like, that doesn't look good, So like you go through this process of trying to figure out what looks good, what doesn't. So I think my biggest thing for my storyboard, my city was Kyoto,
Okay.
or Kyoto, Japan. So I looked at the city as kind of like, very vibrant, very fun, very adventurous. And so I just kind of went through a series of different things. I was like, what could I put together? What can I make look really cool, and it flow. So I actually, was just like, what about people walking in the city? It's starting with just like one person, and then it's just kind of like a time lapse of things. Like nobody, there's just that one person. It's like nobody in the street, and then
Mhm.
the day goes on, and there's 2 3 people, and it's 1,000 people because everybody's working and going their own
Yeah.
separate ways. And so in my mind, I had this really cool visual. And then, like I said, I started to put it on paper and just kind of sketch it out. And that's kind of really how I came up with my storyboard and my line. Like I said, I just feel like Kyoto is like just a very vibrant city. And I just feel like people are always around. So, I went through a phase of trying to figure out, do I want to attack the culture? Do I want to just talk about people, the city? And so I think that was kind of like how I ended up with, the result.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, because mine was how Reykjavik.
Yeah.
Like so like in the class prior to this, I had like two different storyboards because I was kind of confused on um like the fact that we was carrying this on into an ultimate like the final brand of the whole process. But I
Right.
wasn't really comfortable because I was like, I didn't know we was picking this for this, so I picked,
Yeah.
Rashafik. But I kind of started to focus in on, something a little different. I wanted to focus on from the standpoint of the uh, the person that's visiting. I wanted to get their feel because like when you go on vacation, you go to a town. A lot of times you're just doing tourist stuff. You
Yeah.
stay within the town, you really don't do much.
Right.
I wanted to take on a different perspective to show that, okay, here it is, I'm in the city, I didn't pay
Mhm.
all this money for this luxury hotel near the Blue Lagoon. I've done
Mhm.
all the stuff within the town, but I really don't get a chance to explore outside of the city. And
Mhm.
when you look at pictures of the city, the landscape around the city is just beautiful. So
Right.
you have like the northern lights going on, and I was like, let me just go ahead and put those two together. So when I started the storyboard, that's where I started from, having an individual sitting inside of a hotel room with a couple friends and conversating. And as time goes on, it's cold outside. There's nothing else to do because the weather changes quite drastically in
Mhm.
Iceland. So it's like from the distance, here comes the northern lights, and it just billows over top of the city. And so she gets captured looking outside and saying, "Wow, the lights have kind of illuminated different aspects outside of the city that I can now see very clear." And it was almost like taking you on an adventure where she just kind of floats outside of the window. It's like she forgets the conversation that she's dealing with, and she just starts to just daydream. And that's where it starts,
Mhm.
when she goes outside of the window, and then it's like you hear the sounds and the birds and stuff, and then it just goes into like, hey, this is what you're missing, all this adventure, all this fun, you know.
Right.
Because a lot of the comments when I was doing my research was people were saying, oh, the festivals, this is that. But I was also looking on the counter end, and it was like a lot of excursion events and, a lot of different things to do, and
Right.
I'm like, man, I'm not going all the way to Iceland to sit in, in the city when you have all this stuff to do. So that's kind of like how my storyboard came about. And then I just tried to reduplicate that, and trust me, my storyboard took a long time. I
Yeah.
mean, because I literally like I'm not an artist either, so I had to trace and trace and I mean just to get things to look decent. Because I'm not an artist. But ultimately, when I got onto the computer, I was like you, I didn't want to get all caught up in just going straight to the computer because that's what I do a lot. I'm like, just forget the sketches, just go on the computer, and I spend hours and throw this
Yeah.
out, throw it out, keep it. So, the
Yeah.
class or whatever it's worth has helped me just on that aspect to kind of brainstorm my stuff before I get on the computer.
Right.
And then,
Absolutely.
that's basically it.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I really do admire your sketches. Like, I typically sometimes like when I want to make sure I understand an assignment, I always go through and like look at other people's work.
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, like my little stick figures compared to like yeah, like yours is really good. I really do appreciate your graphic. You say you're not an artist, but I think that is not true.
Well, I mean, like it's funny because like I never like how I got pushed into the industry was not by art. I know what I like, and
Mhm.
so I sketch a lot and just do a little. I got Photoshop, and when I was in college, and I would just do like club flyers for the fraternities and stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
thought I was doing something then, but
Yeah.
like I said, I got into it through the business analytics. I'm a data guy. I'm a big
Okay.
big information and data guy, and then I partnered with some guys, and it was like, man, you do big data, you can go ahead and do the analytics for our web analytics and help clients understand the numbers and stuff like that. And I got good at it. And then
Yeah.
now everybody's like, man, look, we need help. We're not hiring nobody else. Look, you a
Yeah.
partner. Look, you gotta get down and help out. You have some graphic experience. So that's kind
Yeah.
of how I got into it. So I'm just surprised. I'm not gonna lie. I'm surprised that I'm even producing some of the stuff I'm doing. So, all right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go into the next slide, which is the motion visual board. Okay, so watched your video, and one of the things
Mhm.
that I liked about it was it really kind of showcased the different locations and different themes that
Mhm.
the city of Kyoto has. I like how you brought in the photos through transitioning from
Mhm.
different sides. You kind of mixed it up with how everything came in, the fonts and stuff like that was faded
Mhm.
in well. Um, and I think that with the music, I think it was a good presentation to kind of showcase, motion vision board for Kyoto. I mean,
Mhm.
you stayed consistent with what you have been doing previous to this class, so I think it was
Mhm.
a good choice. And in creating this piece.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It was that was actually my first one to complete or to produce. So it was going through a struggle. I'm like trying to figure out exactly, what to do, where to put things. So I'm glad in the end it all came together. And that's exactly what my intentions were, to showcase, the big variety that Kyoto has. Like you can do mountains, you can do the city, you can do, anything you can immerse in the culture. So
Right.
that was my intention with that motion board. And as for yours, I watched yours. I thought it was really phenomenal. I mean,
Thanks.
it was exactly like your storyboard, the one that you had sketched. So I think that you stayed consistent as far as the storyline that you were trying to portray. And I think that you did a really good job, like I like how in the beginning, though it's like got some motions in it, it's like got the fonts and the descriptions, the adjectives, I guess, kind of changing back and forth, and you got this like kind of a cloudy smoke, like different colors. I thought that was phenomenal, the way that you designed that, and I like how you have the record Reykjavik come across the screen. I have no idea how to say that. And the way that you incorporated your logo. I think the flow was really nice. The music went really well. I loved how you did the map and then had different pictures coming in
Right.
behind it. I thought that was really strategic, and wise to do it that way, because like I said, you get to showcase the different things that there are to do there in Iceland. So I think you did a really good job, and I feel like you obtained your goal.
I appreciate it. So, like, what were some of your problems? Did you run into any problems?
Yes, at first I did, because in the beginning I was understanding the assignment to, be a video. So I was thinking, where am I going to find these videos? And, how can I incorporate it without like, copywriting issues, and just like being able to find, because there are like stock images that are available to download without any copywriting issues, but there's not very many videos out there with that type of, I guess, standard or requirement. So that was my biggest understanding the assignment, I guess, was my first challenge. Once I actually understood it and I started to watch everybody else's, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
So I could just find some different. So I was just kind of trying to go along with what I had envisioned. And my storyboard, I mean, my motion vision board kind of changed from what I originally put on my storyboard, because as I was doing it, I was like, okay, I kind of want to change it up and, offer a little bit more,
Right.
being that we had more of a foundation or a platform to express the different type of things that we were going to. I didn't exactly know what the storyboard was going to turn into.
Mhm.
So I think that's why I have that concept or that imagination of the other story or the other storyline that I was gonna go towards.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I ended up. So what about you? What challenges
Well,
did you face?
crazy part is like I've never used After Effects, and so I kind of went to what I knew. I used Premiere for the majority of
Mm-hmm.
Adobe Premiere, and but
Mm-hmm.
what I did do, and I used some aspects of Photoshop. So I kind of animated a little bit in Photoshop, brought it over to Premiere, and then when I did kind of get familiarized with Adobe After Effects, it was like that's when I brought in different portions of it. Like in the beginning, that's why I kind of cut it up into three parts because
Yeah.
I was having problems because where my logo first started, I
Uh-huh.
did the static board and I just did the logo coming in, and so that's
Uh-huh.
why the logo's in the middle, and then that's why I was like, oh,
Mm,
okay, it kind of works, you know. But
yeah.
animating the story like I did on the storyboard, I had to use After Effects because it just, you know, scaling out the picture of the woman and bringing in the birds and stuff like that was so easy. So I
Yeah.
kind of used that, but I did some masking and stuff like that. But that was my biggest problem was um, stressed with like trying to use After Effects. I mean, I went
Yeah.
everywhere. To
Yeah.
uh,
Uh-huh.
what is it, Linear,
Linda, yeah.
Linda,
Uh-huh.
After Effects. I mean, and but now it's like it's so easy. You know, I think a
Yeah.
lot of the software is once you just understand the foundation of it. You know,
Exactly.
now,
Yeah.
but for class and doing it within a week's time, and then
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
like, I had some, and then one of the biggest things was you saw the birds came in.
Uh-huh.
The birds was like an after effect. It was an afterthought
Mm.
because I was like,
Wow.
okay, how can I still make this look like my static vision board with putting in, the colors and stuff? Because I'm like,
Right.
the color palette is not even shown on here. I have a lot of stuff going.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
the original one had the birds flying in front of the woman. So
Oh, okay.
I sent it to the professor and he was like, well, it kind of doesn't work. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, it's going to be harder. What am I going to do? He said, put it behind the layer. And I'm like, how do I do that? So that's
How do I do that?
yeah,
Yeah.
So I use
Mhm.
Photoshop and I kind of was able to get it to blend right as it came in and then it scale it out and it worked,
Yeah.
I'm sure, with more time. But I mean,
Yeah.
just like with yours, some of the things like I'm sure with you too, is like if you had more of a understanding of the software, you
Yes.
because I saw some people's and I was like, whoa, I was like, that's yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
I
great web
agree. I
designer.
agree. I
I,
totally agree with that because it is important to understand, like you said, the software you're using because if not, then you don't know the abilities, you don't know what you can do, what you can't do, and it's
right.
hard to try to like experiment with, like you said, when you have only a week's time to get
Yes.
to get it together. So you know, going forward, I hope we get to experience a class where we just kind of, test out the
Yeah.
software.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have 4 weeks to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I agree.
All right. So let's move into, the sound. Um, what is it?
Okay.
Diegetic and non-diegetic sound.
Um,
All right. So
let's
in
see
your
here.
in your motion piece, um, just tell me a little bit. Were you able to use it in your piece, or did you have some difficulties? And do you understand the difference? The difference between the both of the sounds.
Yes. So I guess we can just talk about, like you said, the differences, like what diegetic sound is, what non-diegetic sound is. Diegetic sound, from my understanding, is basically a sound that is visible on the screen. So like a dog barking, and you see a dog barking on the screen, or a pencil, not really a pencil, maybe like pennies falling to the ground, and obviously you see pennies falling to the ground.
Yeah.
And then the non-diegetic sound is like when it's not visible, or it has been applied to like be in like present action. So for me, I wasn't able to. I wanted to. There was I think in my motion video, there's like a woman, and she's kind of like in a cultural outfit. I wanted to kind of add something like a non-diegetic sound, like a hum, like like meditation or something.
Mhm.
Um, but I was not able to figure it out. Like I was trying to figure out, exactly where I could add it, where could I include this, and what benefit would it do. But like you said, understanding the software kind of defeated me, so I wasn't able to add it, but it was a challenge.
Oh yeah, and I mean I can see that too. Because like you said, not understanding the platform that well, it does pose a
Yeah.
problem. I cheat, like I said, I cheated. I used Premiere. I mean, I went in and I did majority of my sound and mixing up of the different sounds in Premiere where I could deal with the scaling of the sound because I wasn't comfortable in After Effects, and
uh,
but just like in mine, like I've spoken about in my storyboard, for me, the most in fact impactful part I felt was where you hear the muffled sound of them talking in the background, and then
Mm-hmm.
it scales out. You know, that was one of the things that took a
Yeah.
long time to figure out. Like, okay, how can I use the diegetic sound and the non-diegetic sound um, together? Because I was having a hard time. So for me, it was
Right.
thinking about me being that character. Well, what would it sound if I was sitting in a room and I got bored with the people and I escaped? And so
Yeah.
I used the scale of sound. So if you listen to it in the beginning where you hear the soft music, and then as she
Uh-huh.
goes outside of the window, you hear the wind and you hear the loud sounds of like the birds. Everything is calm,
Mm.
where I wanted to use the sound to showcase that she's outside of
Yeah.
herself, but yet the viewer hears it.
Right.
You wouldn't necessarily hear it because she's still in the room. So, that's how I try to stay with it. I don't know if it really makes sense, but to me it did. And so, and then at the end where you have the pop of the star, just trying to find different parts to make sound. Now I don't know if I used it completely correct, but that's just how I felt I could use it within the piece.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I agree with that. Like I like how, and I noticed that while watching the video, I noticed like the music fading out, and then you could kind of hear like outside noise.
right.
So I thought that was really cool how you incorporated that, which was like you said, kind of use both diegetic and non-diegetic. The diegetic being the birds coming on the screen, and then non-diegetic, like the outside music or the outside noise,
Yeah,
music, because obviously you can't really see music playing. It's a live band.
yeah.
So I thought that was really really neat how you incorporated that.
Because even in yours, I could see like, especially if they were sitting like the one with the when you had the what was it, the sushi and stuff like that. Maybe hearing
Hmm.
like the dishes clang, or maybe hearing like you said, just something letting people talking or whatever.
Yeah.
I think with more time you could have figured that out. Especially if you a
Yeah.
little bit more background. But yeah, I think you
Right.
did a good job though. I think you did a
I
good
appreciate
job like that. All
Thank
right,
you.
so let's go into the making 2D into 3D movement. So, what are some of the ways that you feel like you can make 2D design into a 3D masterpiece?
I think what I've really become fascinated with is like the cinemagraphs,
Yeah.
and the ability, like, the fact that they have, just as simple as like some of the examples we kind of had to study, and like during the research when we had to choose our motion style.
Hmm.
Um, I think that, basically taking a still image and then something small, like, one of the pictures that I seen watching a tutorial or a cinematograph that I seen was, um, it was a mountain and it was like a river creek, just kind of like the creek, it was just water flowing.
Yeah.
So obviously, the mountains don't move, but it was still really neat to see it because it's like the mountains are so still, and it's not you would think you could confuse it for a video or a picture, but you're like, you look at it at first glance, you're like, oh, it's a nice picture, but then you realize it's moving because it's
Yeah.
so small, it's so defined. So I think that's one way to do it. I think it's really neat whenever you're able to take something that's not obvious. Like obviously mountains don't move, so it's kind of like, is it a video or is it a picture?
Right. Right.
If you're a graphic designer or a designer or someone who's seen cinemagraphs, you kind of understand the concept. However, for like if a girl was like twirling her hair, and the only thing was like moving is her hand like this, but everything else is like still, there's nothing else moving. I think it's a really cool effect when you can place a picture and then place a video on top of it and then combine them and make
Yeah.
them like a 3D image.
And I had never like really thought of like animating something that is static. I mean, it hadn't really come to my mind until we started doing research in this class. And I started
Uh-huh.
seeing like, oh, so that's what's going on. It kind of was brought
Yeah.
to my attention. And seeing
Yeah.
how, like, one of the things I liked is how they used the video behind a still image, where, they
Uh-huh.
mask out a section and then all they do is
Yeah.
put a video behind it, and I'm
Exactly.
like, wow, that's kind of cool. And it's very simple. So like
You're right.
some of the things that I'm thinking about, like when I can go to my clients, is I can actually do stuff like that. I could use
Right.
masking to put a video behind a stat in image, or maybe use like some form of, like you said, the cinematograph. Because even
Uh-huh.
with cinematograph, like looking at my son's iPhone, it already does it. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
crazy thing, like where the motion is set. You just take one stagnant video, but then something behind it, you can basically just keep it motioning. So
Right.
our phones are becoming so, it's doing amazing things with photos, and I can see the
Right.
popularity of it because you're able to animate, Christmas cards and
Mm-hmm.
stuff on social media. So it's just interesting that how the software has changed. That it's right in
Right.
your hand. You don't have to learn it. You just push a button. You
Just
know.
push a button. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm looking at some of this stuff when, like even when I started researching about, the cinemagraphs, I'm like, oh man, that's kind of cool. And I'm sitting here trying to explain my way. I'm like, okay, did they do this? I'm going being so technical in how I understand
Yeah.
like layering. And I'm like, okay, they
Uh-huh.
probably did this, and they did this, and did this. And then I look in the
Mm-hmm.
comments and somebody's just taking their iPhone and basically taking
Yeah.
one picture and then just cut out an area and then like they're just letting the rest of the video just move through that one cut out area. I'm like, man, this
Exactly.
thing is simple, you know?
It's so
But it's
simple,
effective.
and then you just don't even you look at it and you're like, wow, it's so cool,
Yeah,
but then it's so simple. Yeah.
yeah. And see, that's why I'm saying like these little techniques, applying it into my industry, I now can be like, hey, look, I can, you're talking about doing video. Why are we gonna spend all this money on video? And we can just,
Right.
it saves me from editing. It saves me from,
Right.
just let's just do this and call it a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Saving time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I totally agree with that because it's something so simple, but it's so unique. It's so
yeah.
defined. You don't really see it that often. You don't really see it that often, but I think it's really neat.
But see, I thought in your industry you would see it a lot because you know how they have the big, the digital deal, like the digital event boards
Yeah.
and stuff like
Hmm.
that. I would
Yeah.
have thought that I finally saw some type of, well, it was cinematographics when I went to Burger King, because Burger King
Uh,
has it now on their menu where they use the transitions, and then they'll also
true.
like have the hamburger, and you might see a piece of lettuce fall off of it. Oh
Yeah,
wow!
that's
So
true.
I'm
I guess I
becoming,
never looked at it like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I've been open to something new. I know people are gonna be like, oh man, you crazy.
Yeah.
Like, nah, you don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, see, now I'm gonna be looking out for it because before I understood what a cinematograph was I guess I was just looking at it like a moving image, like just a graph
Right,
or
right.
a GIF. I would say in my industry, I feel like we see like more so like the rotating images
Yeah,
and transitioning. Like a lot of the times we have like you said the big digital boards and it'll be like the agenda and it's just kind of
yeah,
like it's just still, and then like every 15 seconds it'll change images. So I guess we see like more so the rotating images. I guess I didn't look at it as like a cinematograph or a GIF or anything, but I consider it, I guess, like it's a rotating image or a transitioning slide or something like that. So I feel like
yeah,
I see a lot of that, but I didn't even think of it like that, like, just simple things like Burger King's menu.
yeah. I
That's
mean, it
cool.
could be used everywhere. It's like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
All right,
really cool.
so I put both of ours from the motion poster to cinematograph um, on this next slide. And so, do you see how they use this for the television show? Very simple. Using the cutout of the woman, but all the actions in behind her, like with the
Yeah.
lights and then the buildup of the sound, and it, it's something that just draws you in. It's like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah, like
Um,
what's going on?
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think this was like the introduction of a new character that was going to be on Heroes. So that's kind of
Uh,
neat. You figure you did the whole cast like this for a
Yeah.
web, something on social media. Hey, introducing our new character, and you present them with a 15-second cut. You know,
Yeah.
now I want to know what's her powers. Like, what is she going to do? Is she evil? Is she good? I see the lightning,
Yeah.
and that's what I love about the motion posters is that you could do it with sports, you can do it with a new product. I mean, you could do it with a movie, television, and it gives a feeling like, wow, what is this? Opposed to just a regular poster, it's static.
hmm
So,
Yes, exactly. And that's what's so fascinating about it, because like you said, when at first glance you're looking at it, but then if you have your sound on, you're like, whoa, this isn't just a picture.
yes,
It makes you kind of question, oh, is this a video? Is this a picture?
right,
Like it's a really cool concept. I think that the ability, it just really brings your images to life. Like you said,
right,
it intrigues you, and then like especially for advertising wise, like for certain clients, like that's a great aspect. That's a great feature, to introduce your clients, showing them instead of just posting, like it could have been still a really nice picture, but it adds so much more when you have the music or the sound effects, and then you
right.
have the background, going crazy. So it's really really interesting when you like bring it down. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that was cool too. And so we also have the one with like one of the ones where the cinematograph where you have the
hmm
coffee, and like you say, it's very interesting. It's just like a stream of coffee just dropping into a cup. I mean, the
Yeah.
simplicity of that. Like at,
hmm
at first, I was sitting here when I saw it, and I'm like, okay, it's just a coffee in a cup, and then I was like, wait a minute, it's like
Yeah.
coffee just keeps going. I think
Right.
that's very cool, very slick and simple.
It's very, yeah, that's a great word for it. It's very slick, and it catches your eye because you're just
Yeah.
like, wow, like the image itself is already a very good image. Like, the photography of
Oh
it
yeah.
is really great. And then but then when you just see that coffee dripping down, it's just like, wow, it's
Yeah.
moving. It's a moving picture.
Right.
Of course, that's the words you use when you don't really know the name of it. But it's a really cool cinematograph. So it's cool.
It is. And so with my motion poster, what I decided to do was going back to the city. The city that I was dealing with was an expression of I wanted to get the person who goes into the city and that's all they see to say, hey, there's much more outside the city. And I
hmm
started looking at tourist companies that were doing a lot of extreme stuff. And I was like,
hmm
wow, how cool it would be is if somebody could go online and they could look at all the things they have, but instead of it just being a picture and saying it's $25 or whatever, they could
Yeah.
actually see a poster graphic of somebody like, a picture and then you have the actual motion within that little graphic so that they could get a
Right.
chance to feel it and be like, hey, I'm going to go here because it just looks and feels exciting. So I know
Right.
for me, it's like when I go to places and they show pictures, I'm not really excited about the picture. I have to read the description to say, is
Right.
this something I would really want to do? Okay, what is it going to have going on? But, for somebody that may not be interested in this extreme sport, seeing it, they may be like, let me try it. You know how people are. Hey, try it after you see
Yeah.
somebody doing it. So it plays on those emotions. Motion posters do a great job with playing on those emotions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but all I did was I basically took the picture and I just blended um, pictures of running water. But what I did was I kind of morphed and curved it so that it would look
hmm
like it was multiple uh, waves.
Ah,
So
like switching back and forth.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
the waterfalls, all I did was took video of waterfalls and I just kind of scaled them down and put them in the background, and I put water down below so that you could kind
Mhm.
of have that feeling with him rocking back and forth
Mhm.
as if you were there. So the intro brings him into the picture, and then he started
Mhm.
rocking back and forth. And but I put behind him some audio of him breathing. So it's like, okay, I'm working my way down the rapids, and it's tough, and you hear the splash and stuff like that. So I wanted to do a lot to kind of animate the poster because that was the only way that I felt I could show like something extreme, something scary. I wanted the audience to
Right.
feel like, whoa, this is scary but yet fun. But he's
Yeah.
going over the cliff. I mean,
Right.
hey, if you're that type
Yeah,
of person,
exactly.
then you
Playing
need
on
to,
that motion.
yeah, if you're a fool to do it, hey, go ahead and do it. But I just
Yeah.
kind of showcase that in this piece.
Right. That's really neat. Yeah, that's really neat. Like you said, it just kind of gets you excited. Even though
Yeah,
you're like, oh, what's gonna happen? It's kind of like a movie. You're like,
right.
what am I to expect? What's coming next?
Yeah, because I mean, I like I said, looking at brands and looking at when I look at analytics of like the different campaigns that go on, it's always the
Uh,
ones that are thrilling or all the ones that's like right there on the edge that people you
right.
get the most attention, you get the most hits. I mean, it's like so that's how I think of it from an advertising. Like you want to be able to get yourself in front of these people and have them have
Yeah.
a feeling. Because if they're not feeling nothing, then you're not doing your job, you
You
know?
know, do your job. Yeah, exactly. I agree.
And then you did the cinematograph.
Uh-huh.
So kind of explain what you did.
Like, like I said, like I was saying earlier, I was just really fascinated by cinemagraphs. So that's why I chose that as my motion style. And I also felt like, like it's an opportunity to like bring a picture to life. Like I said, it's kind of like that. You make your audience kind of curious of what they're looking at. Like I said, just that, is it a video? Is it a picture? And I just think that, like this here is kind of like a culture, a typical culture of Japan itself. You just have like a bunch of women obviously doing a performance. And so I think that's really why I chose this one. And I think it just kind of like like with a cinematograph, I feel like it could just bring it to life.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, because I'm like I said, I'm starting to, after researching cinemagraphs, I'm gonna start using this because, like I say, it's so simple,
Yeah.
man. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
starting to just fall in love with it. I mean, it's like something you can just. I'm gonna cinematograph my kids' stuff. I think that's what I'm gonna do for Christmas. I'm gonna just
Yeah.
cinematograph everything.
Just like sitting around just doing it. Yeah.
I'm gonna take my family's YouTube pictures and I mean YouTube
Yeah.
videos and photos, and I'm gonna just wow them, as a Christmas.
Exactly. They're all gonna be like, "What? How'd you do that?"
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah.
So now the one thing this is the I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the journal entries. So
Yes.
oh man, so like with the journal entries, what was interesting to me is like I never thought I'd be writing a journal.
Yeah.
I notate a lot of stuff, and I have all these like stickies hanging everywhere. But
Mm.
when I did the journal and him, the professor making sure that we had to do it for a whole week, I was like, oh,
Mhm.
this sucks. I was like, this is gonna suck. So I first started off with my notepads, and then I was like, well, I'm losing one here, I'm losing there, and then
Mhm.
I actually put it into a book form. And when I started
Mhm.
to look at it, you know, I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy, because we don't realize how much our subconscious picks up on stuff. We're
Yeah.
like, we think our ideas just are like, I had that idea, but we pick up so much through our subconscious as we go throughout the day. Like I was
Right.
picking up conversations from my coworkers and my children and
Yeah.
all that, and
I
so when I started
agree.
formulating this, I'm like, wow, this is interesting. These crazy
Yeah.
stories are coming together.
I
So I thought that was
agree.
that was kind of cool. And like with some of mine, it always ended up like apocalypse, Trump, so
Yeah.
it ended up like
Yeah.
like war or something, because that's what Trump is like on TV all the time. So
All the
so
time.
constantly
Yeah.
I'm making movies with this guy, and I mean, it just got real crazy. But
Yeah.
and it helped to see that how stories are told and stories are made
Right.
up. You know, just
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. I totally agree. That's kind of how just to like piggyback off that. It's really cool because like every time because I've been in like the graphic eye, like it's so crazy. I can't even like watch a commercial without analyzing it.
right,
Like, like if a Sprite bottle pops open, I'm
yeah,
like, how, you know what I'm saying? I'm just thinking like how, how'd that clip go? Like what happened
yeah,
there? So it's really cool because, and sometimes it's annoying because like I can't even watch a movie without
right.
like analyzing how things go, how they're panning the camera, like
Oh yeah,
it's really different whenever you have like that graphic eye. And like you said, like stories are just made up. So like
yeah,
I always, sometimes when I'm watching a movie, I kind of come about like, how did they get this storyline? Like, where did this
yeah,
storyline come from? Like, this isn't most stories or most movies are kind of just made up
yeah.
unless they're like based off of a true story,
Story,
which
yeah,
typically in this today's industry we are seeing happen a lot.
yeah,
But it's, for me, I had the same enjoyment. Like I really did enjoy doing the journals, and it's crazy, like how just like you said, how your mind opens up when you're trying to think. You're like, okay, what am I gonna write down? Like sometimes I'd be watching TV, like just but listening to music too, and I would pick up words from a song, or I pick up
yeah,
words from the TV, and I just find myself just kind of playing off that. Like sometimes I just say New York City, and then I go from New York City and say, oh, fast train, subway,
right.
just kind of piggybacking off that. So it was really neat to do it because I haven't ever kept a journal that in that sense. The only other journal I kept is I studied abroad one summer and I kept a journal of basically what I was doing every day, but it wasn't like any thoughts that come to my
Yeah,
mind, So it was really cool. And my stories typically ended up being more about music or love or something crazy. I don't know. And it just like all the words that I had, I would be like, I really couldn't even form just one thing, but I just kind of see what I said most are kind of related to one another, and
yeah.
that's kind of how I went about that. But I guess it was really neat to keep it because it was just like, wow, this is cool. You get to just kind of see your own brain come to paper, come
Oh
on
yeah.
paper. So it was really
And,
neat.
it was something was interesting was, um, and I was watching with my son the first player, the real first player movie, and
Uh-huh.
that's how it kind of like I would get it like that quick. I would look at a movie and then I'd be like, this could really happen, you know. So it kind of
Yeah.
pulled me into like the state of America right now with Trump. Like this could really happen. Oh my
This could
God,
really
I just seen
happen.
this dude in the
Yeah.
movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I seen him on the show. You know, I mean the old,
Yeah.
I mean like it was just weird because one of the things like about that particular movie was that
Mhm.
it hit on all senses. I mean, like, if you've never seen it, like, that is by far one of the best animated and realistic way that they combine both that
Mhm.
kind of like seen in a while. I mean,
Yeah.
Spielberg does a great job with how he produces his movies, telling the stories. And one of the great things about that was just sitting down watching that movie. It was
Mhm.
like I there were so many spinoffs that you can do from that movie. It's just like, the climax to the character development to just the sound, the visuals. I mean, it had
Mhm.
everything. And that
Yeah.
was really kind of let me see like, hey, at first I never thought about doing motion or animation, but
Mhm.
looking at the vastness of things that you can do with it, it kind of
Mhm.
brought me to a point say I like to delve in this a little bit more because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's where everything's going. And if you're a designer and you're just expecting posters and catalogs and static designs to keep you afloat, you're wrong. I mean, everything's
Yeah.
going online, everything's going animation, everything, even like
Agreed.
video games. I mean, like just to stay relevant, you have to start to expand upon the skill sets you have, and if you don't have them, then you have to start the research to figure out how you can develop what you have to make yourself marketable in the industry.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, but I'm gonna definitely continue to use the journal entries because
Yeah.
I like some of the stories that just came about.
Yeah, it's really fun whenever you just like thinking, I'm actually making a story right now. Like
Oh
this
yeah,
may not, no one will ever see it, but it's okay because I made a story.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely. All right, so we kind of already talked about the things about. Let me see, what was the last slide? How we would use the skills we acquired during this course. Like I said before, I'm gonna be using these skills. I mean, I don't know how it's gonna go over with some of our clients, but I'm gonna try it. I mean,
Yeah.
just to get feedback, because I've kind of learned in this course that I used to be hesitant of feedback. Like people,
Hmm.
well, and I'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about. It could be from
Yeah.
anybody. I had that like,
Hmm.
you're not a designer, or you're not doing this type of work. You don't
Hmm.
understand numbers, and so I was kind
Yeah.
of real skeptical about feedback.
Right.
This course kind of helped me understand that you have to be open to it because it opens you to new possibilities and just how you think. It's not about
Absolutely.
people liking your stuff, but it's about you understanding where you can develop and where you can grow, and it's more about you and how you
Right.
feel about what your work is. How do you accept the criticism, and how do you grow from information being given about something that you feel passionate about?
Right. I agree. I totally agree. I'm kind of the same way. I used to be just kind of critical of feedback. I'm like,
Yeah,
when I used to like get peer feedback all the time, and sometimes I would just kind of be a little defensive about it. I'm like,
yeah,
well, I'm not even finished. This is just a sketch. Like, don't tell me that yet. Like, I haven't even finished
yeah,
it. But then I had to realize, like you said, some people some people know more than others, and so it
yeah,
doesn't hurt to share the knowledge. Sure, it's a wealth of knowledge. So I definitely think criticism and feedback is very relevant and it's effective, because if you take in that feedback, if you're just dishing out things and everybody says they love it, then you're not really going to look into changing, or
right,
developing a new way of doing things, because you're like, oh, well, everything I do is just good, so I don't have to change anything.
yeah,
But I think it's really crucial, especially in this industry, because sometimes you create something and you're like, this is amazing. It's like, it looks so great. And then you show it to your client and they're like, this isn't what I want,
yeah,
but you're like, wow, I spent so much time on this,
yeah,
like you just think I'm like, wow, like, so I just think it's effective to be able to receive feedback. And as far for me, I think, I'll use that for sure as a skill, just accepting feedback and criticism. And then also, I feel like some of the skills and technical skills that we've learned, such as using some of these different softwares like Illustrator. I've gotten really familiar with Illustrator now.
yeah,
Adobe Spark. I've been using that. And I've been using Photoshop before prior to this class, but I've just learned a little bit more about different workspaces and the ability that Photoshop has. So I definitely will use that in my career and just everyday use and going forward in the classes that we have ahead.
yeah, yeah. Because like for me, I mean, I got my I got a computer graphics degree. This was
Mm.
like back in '95, like long time ago. Like,
Yeah.
and the crazy part about it is like when Photoshop One came out, it's like
Yeah.
I got so used to Photoshop, and I could do so much in Photoshop. Like people
Yeah.
are like, how can you do it in Photoshop? I'm like, man, I've had years of Photoshop as like my main tool. I mean, I use
Yeah.
Illustrator, but I use Photoshop first. That's like my go-to. And I try to tell
Yeah.
people like, they're like, you can animate and you can do this in Photoshop. I'm like, yeah. I mean, but I never really like messed with it until like
Yeah.
recently. And I'm
Yeah.
saying like all this time I could have been dealing with my animation skills in Photoshop.
Yeah.
I could have been like right where I need to be. But
Yeah.
the thing about is with the technology and the tools, I don't think if I had not gone back to school for this, I don't think that I ever would have opened up Adobe Effects.
Yeah.
My friends would do web pages and stuff like that, and they'd be like, "Hey, man, can you do the front end design?" And I do the front end design and stuff like that for them.
Yeah.
But crazy thing is, everybody has templates now. You can
Yeah.
get like After Effects templates, and now I'm like, oh man, now I know how to get an After Effects template and manipulate it and do this, and
Yeah.
so some of the work, you know, I can just use templates to kind of present to my clients, so I'm not having to really delve into something. But
Mhm.
one of the things, like me having to being forced to do this, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start doing like what we've been doing, the sketches, and then moving
Mhm.
to the preliminary, opposed to just getting on the computer and just doing whatever I need to do. So that's taught
Yeah.
me a lot, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not wasting time, but yeah, I mean the course has really helped me to expand upon a lot of the things that I know, but I really didn't know how
Mhm.
to apply them. You just
Right. I
like, I
agree.
know how
Yeah.
you did that, but I
Yeah.
don't know how to. Like I know, but I really don't
Yeah.
know. You know,
Yeah.
so
Uh-huh.
yeah, this was kind of cool. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
so from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna we're just gonna end it, and
Okay.
hopefully what we presented is everything
Yeah, it's good.
that we
Yeah.
need to do. But and we can just say we're done, and that's it.
And then we can, okay. So I guess I'll just say, well, this class has been really effective, and I feel like I've learned a lot, and I'm going to take it with me going forward in my next courses. And it's been great to work with you.
Yes, same here, same here. I will say the same.